In regards to the details of garages, look, we don't go to that level of trying to determine whether there's something in behind that. We record the statistics on the nature of the building. In terms of density, that's an issue for the district plan. My recollection is the district plan is not pushing significantly higher in terms of the densities. But it is an element in some of, there were some issues, and correct me if I'm wrong in this, in some of the urban areas where the size of a section can be a little bit smaller, in some of the more rural areas. But also it does allow, in terms of the uses, for more to go on a particular site around some of those. But there's not a strong push in terms of the district plan on greater intensification. That may well be an issue that would need to arise as we start getting greater and greater growth. But when we see in here sort of 70 new houses a year, the long-term plan and the asset management plans were working on a growth rate of 0.3%, which is not particularly, it's neither small nor huge. It's actually manageable in terms of the long term, in terms of putting great pressure on infrastructure.
Thank you.
I would just like to comment that in the new district plan there's a mix, so there's a whole mix of, you can have a little bit smaller in some areas, and there's provision for papakainga and more social housing, so it's probably useful to go online and have a look at some of those new options. All right, Councillor Gould.
Thank you for your report this morning. On page 28, is that graph relating to June or July? Because I suspect it's July, because you've got 29 days listed. You might have had to do the report on the 30th of July.
I would expect it's done for the July month, yes.
Okay. And also on page 30, your LIMS issued has risen just over 55% in the year 15-16 against 14-15. Has that put a lot more strain on council staff doing them? Or does that mean you had to put in extra staff or work longer hours or compensate for that dramatic increase?
The short answer to that would be a simple yes to all. It has put some strain in. It has had a little bit of pressure in terms of the resource, but it is an area that we're monitoring. There is also the availability for us when we do get a little bit more push to pull in a little bit more resource. So an answer to it, yes to all three. It has been a point that we've been raising with the council in regards to the consenting area for a little while. It is under pressure around staffing, and so a reflection into the mix of that when Thomas was talking before about the 395 cap and the numbers in terms of growth. What we've been reflecting on is actually whether staff are under pressure simply because we've got vacancies that we aren't filling. So we have been moving to fill some of those vacancies to alleviate the pressure that the staff are under.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question was to come back to the library, if I may, through you, Madam Chair. And great to see on top of page 26 there that Ngāpu Manawa e Waru are in a partnership role with the library in the planning. They've recommended some innovation in the planning, and I think one of the challenges will be getting them out of their current location. The single levels apparently proving very popular, is the feedback we're all getting, and moving back to a multi-floor facility. So could you just remind me of the proposed date for the new facility and what the planning that is being engaged upon, what groups are being involved in the planning and how that's being led? Thank you.
So the date for moving back to the new facility is in the sort of, the target date is December 17. So working through the sort of construction schedules and so on in terms of the tenders. It could be as early as September 17, depending on the contractor's resource availability and what we wanted to target. Around the mix of it, there's been quite wide involvement in terms of the concept designs. So the concept designs came to the council. That's now gone on to more detailed designs. The detailed designs are expected to be finished in the next 3 weeks. We are working with, just so that we can meet our timelines of getting back into the library by December 17. We have been out in terms of tenders with contracts, so we will still go down a fixed price contract, but we're actually looking to get a contractor on board early in the process, and we've got an item going to SPNF this month in terms of awarding of a contract, obviously subject to the contract coming in within the $12.8 million total funding available for all of the costs. So there's work going on with iwi. The library have engaged with library users, the Friends of the Library, the iwi group in terms of those things, and having input into the design and having input also into artwork that will be going into the library. So reasonably extensive, and a fair bit of that being led out of JP's engagement team.
I'm not wanting to let an opportunity go by to do with sport and recreation. Just a friendly reminder that we don't often get test matches in Rotorua, but we have the New Zealand versus Jamaica netball test match coming up next month, and sincerely hope that those who want to go will get some tickets. Also pleased to announce that another Rotorua person is off to the Olympics. Liam Messon was called in today as a reserve for Mr. Stanaway, who got injured. And on behalf of the sporting and recreation community of Rotorua, I just want to wish our Danny Lee, Julia Edwards and Val Adams and Liam Messon, all Rotorua people, and I've probably missed out one. I think it's a girl who's in the soccer team. Yeah, and I can't recall her name. All the very best at the Olympics, which start on Saturday. But Stavros, last meeting, Madam Chair, we got a report from the Bay of Plenty Transport Committee stating that the issues of Tenai Road and Nongataha Road are in the priority list. But I must say, I couldn't raise it at the last meeting. I spoke to Glennis about the significance of them being put on there, but they're well down the list, and it's set for 2017. Well, that's next year. Are you expecting those, particularly Nongataha, which is where the traffic jams are really occurring, and it is having an impact on our economic growth in the city, and people are now saying, well, I don't want to go out there because the traffic's such a problem. So I just wondered how far do you expect those to be progressed, Stavros, and what energy are you going to put into that? I'm sure you will. And the other question I have is the removal of the sales from the CBD. Just come back from a trip to Brisbane, and whilst they have a lot more probably hot sunshine than we do, they've got the exact same sales that were in the CBD over the children's playgrounds in every park that I viewed. And I just wondered, rather than sending them off to some scrap metal merchant, those posts that have come out, I'd like to see some investigation done into having those put over the children's volcanic playground down at the lakefront, because the mothers and the parents say, in summer it is terribly hot down there and they can only stay in. They've got the trees to shelter in, but when the kids are actually over on the playground, it is an issue. So I just, with those, and as this is our last meeting, Madam Chair, it really grates me when I see people making ill-informed comment on social media and in other forums saying that the portfolios aren't working. This portfolio in sport and recreation, under the leadership of Rob Pikethley and his team, they have moved mountains. Look at the progress we've made out at Waipa, the stringent discussions that Dave's been involved with in getting that on track. We're going to have a world-class facility down there, And to say that the portfolios aren't working is a load of rubbish. The portfolios are working, and particularly in your area, in Metapeka's area, in my area, and particularly in Karen, who led right from day one, and we've come on board slowly. But the next 3 years are going to be really exciting, and in Rob's report here, he leads the way forward in terms of what we are looking forward to, and I just hope that whoever is the mayor, I've got a fair idea who it will be, will carry on with the portfolios, because they are a serious way of getting the issues attached. So I just want to, and to you, Madam Chair, I just want to thank you for your work in chairing this often acrimonious meeting at times, but you've done it with a bit of class and a bit of decorum. So thank you on behalf of us. But can I have the question, Stavros, regarding Nongata and Tino Road?
Repeat them again, we forgot.
Oh, he hasn't forgotten. He hasn't forgotten.
It's been locked in. Through you, Madam Chair, there are a couple of separate sort of issues. Councillor State has raised. One, we start from the eastern and the central corridor. As you would recall, that after the lifting of the REA designation, we have agreed now to move with NZTA to move into the phase of what we call the detailed business case. That basically what it says, it now interrogates and asks some detailed technical question as to what kind of intervention is on Sala Street, Tarawera, off at Limon Junction and so on. The steering group had this inaugural sort of meeting on last Monday. NZTA has appointed OPAS as their representative consultant to work with that. So that work started in earnest as of Monday. Parallel with that, working on the revocation of the State Highway 38 at the central corridor, and obviously, it's our intention to get the most out of that revocation, because we want to improve our connection of the Rotorua Central to the rest of the CBD, improve the pedestrian amenity and cycling amenity, and general urban value of that of that kind of corridor. Fair to say that we're already having some tensions with NZTA about who's funding who or what, but that's part and parcel of the game. We'll work with that. Parallel with that, when it comes to Nongotaha, there are two distinct kind of projects. One is it's an alliance, safety alliance project that is led by Becca on behalf of NZTA. They are looking to the corridor between Fairy Springs and north of Nongotaha to State Highway 5, which includes a roundabout. And we would expect recommendations and hopefully physical sort of improvement work early in the new financial year, in the new calendar year, 2017. But we'll still have to see their recommendations. And in parallel with that, the Nongotaha Residents Association raised some concerns about the Nongotaha village, the urban center of Nongotaha, about traffic, the safety of pedestrian crossing and so on. And I have asked NZTA's safety officers to engage with the local community and gather evidence and their views and their concerns. So, with a view identifying potential improvement in areas in that area. So all these things are happening now, and they are progressing concurrently. So I would hope over the next 2-3 months we'll be reporting to you regularly and let you know where we are. But certainly with the eastern and central corridor, we should be seeing some physical activities in the early part of 2017. Because remember, NZTA has got a funding of about $27 million, which needs to be used by 2018. So there's a bit of urgency, in their stride. And so all these things are taking place right now.
Thank you very much. Mr. Waru.
Kia ora, Madam Chair, and tota hiaki kai te mihi kia koe Dave. I tō kaha ki te whakatairanga I tō tātou reo rangatira. I'm just referring to the groundbreaking project that they undertook at the library there to have our kōrero, our te arawa stories translated into te reo Māori. E rawe tērā, and I tū I te wiki o te reo Māori, which is really appropriate, and I take my hat off to you for that. Seeing as Rotorua is probably, arguably, the biggest consumer of te reo Māori, I'm talking about our kura kaupapa, our kōhanga reo, and our iwi marae, e rā mea katoa. I think it's really an awesome project to be involved with, and I look forward to seeing the fruits of that. Bueno, ki taku pātai. Let me refer to the page. 32. Public access to wastewater treatment plant. Now, I guess, are we trying to educate the community about the new wastewater plant? So, well, I know we are. So have council considered an increased but controlled access in the way of tours to the place, to the sewage plant?
I'll lead off and then pass to Andy. We did, you may recall, through the treatment plant process and the consultation, there were two tours that were conducted through there, and there have been school groups toured through there. Big issue that we run into with it around the access is actually there's a lot of hazardous stuff there. You've got hazardous chemicals, but also there are certain places where the sewerage is exposed to air, where it's going through certain processes, and actually it's quite a easy site for people to sort of get away from a tour leader. So it is an element that's a bit of a vexed element as to how much you allow and how you promote it, when you consider actually what it's like as a safe site from a health and safety point of view. So we are reviewing the health and safety around the general access, and I'll pass to Andy for the balance.
Yes, so like Dave said, it is a workplace. It is a place where there are health and safety issues, and it's been fairly open in the past, I have to say, to tour groups and to encourage people to go around. We have to review that a little in light of the new health and safety legislation and the risks that we've got down there, and so we are working our way through that. We would like to encourage people to know what happens down there. We certainly don't want to stop that or restrict it. However, we do have those risks to manage.
And just on that, still on the wastewater treatment plant, I know you talked about having discussions already with certain community groups, but I'm quite interested in to seeing how the discussions with mana whenua are going, and can we have an update?
Yes, certainly. So through you, Madam Chair, we meet two weekly, so fortnightly. The mana whenua group have made application to TPK for funding to look at to investigate whether the proposal is sound or not, and we're working with them in every way we can to sort of to find our way through these issues. So we meet fortnightly, regularly, and officially, and I understand there will be a meeting set up shortly for us to talk on a wider basis as well through the partnership as well.
Got it. And one last question. I refer to page 33, the museum retail. It's obviously a strength. The museum retail, it looks great. So what are the plans to leverage this strength, I suppose, to other council-controlled sites like the airport, for example? Are there any plans?
Well, you'll be aware the airport, through the board, is actually, it already has retail there. And it is a question that the board is actually pondering as to what the nature of that retail should be. And likewise, it's similarly an issue in regards to the eyesight, and I'm pretty confident that will be picked up through the new economic development CCO as to what the nature of that offering is. The museum offering is very much centred around the museum and the New Zealand experience, so trying to make it quite authentic to that, so you actually see what's in there is stuff that is actually related to their core business. You might argue that some of it's a little bit wider than that, but probably pretty much at the margin. The books that they're selling are books relating to art, history, that type of thing, and things that they believe a tourist would be interested in terms of going there. Likewise, the items that they're looking to sell from the other retail portions are similarly in keeping with that. So really, in regards to it, they're probably the three areas where it sort of relates. We're not rolling it out into other facilities because the other facilities are not really targeting the tourist population, whereas it is quite acknowledged, and even in the statistics, a huge amount of domestic and international tourists are going through there as opposed to Rotorua. So it is actually regarded as one of Rotorua's tourist attractions, and therefore goes down that track as opposed to a lot of our other facilities where we don't see ourselves actually competing with retailers.
Thank you.
Now, we've got a number of speakers, and I've got you all listed, so don't worry. But I've got you, Councillor Maxwell. I just wanted to take a pause for a moment because I see that Jason has come in. So I'd like you, instead of sitting here while we go, on for some length, I just thought it would be nice for you to introduce him. And we've already heard about your new position, so congratulations on behalf of us. And I know Dave will just introduce you to those who don't know you.
Yeah, so councillors, this is Jason. He's the new consent manager, consent solutions manager. Jason has been with the organisation for about 2 years now. He came in through the restructure. We were very fortunate at the time to get him. He's come out of the private sector consultancy side, has great connections into the local private sector consultancy side. So he's actually able to see the issues around consents from the consultant's point of view, not just from a regulatory point of view. And that has added an awful lot of strength into the group. As I said earlier, he is highly respected by his colleagues downstairs and by the wider community out there. So,
Yes, Your Worship.
Jason, congratulations, and because you've been here 2 years, there's been a lot of work changing around the focus to the customer at the centre. Are we still doing that relationship manager approach for big developments being proposed? That was something that wasn't there 3 years ago.
Yes, yeah, and thank you all, through you, Madam Chair. Yes, you're right, the direction has changed over those 3 years, and we're continuing with that. The way we've established it is each consent officer has the actual roll-off, more engaged and actually working with the developer or the community in that regard. So we do have regular engagement meetings. We are trying to front load the process a lot, so actually being available for meetings and actually doing planning before the actual regulatory process starts, before it hits the desk. So actually being involved up front, looking at potential issues, working through district plan, and trying to provide more certainty at the upfront stage.
Certainly, I know Councillor Hunt Sarenk and I got to know you a bit through the district plan hearings when you were representing many clients, so we appreciate your work through that. So it's lovely to see you apply and be appointed over a period of time to this position. So congratulations again and thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right, so now I'm just to let you know who's in order so you don't feel like I've missed you out. So we've got Mr. Basanye Tule, Councillor McVicker, Maxwell Donaldson, Rotorua, and Your Worship. So, all right. So we'll go to
Kia ora,
you
Madam
first.
Chair. I just have to give my apologies for 12:45, attending the funeral of Wairiki art tutor, Cherise Sawyer, passed away on Friday, 39 years old. So she'll be down at Sala Street at 1 o'clock. So just give my really apologies. I would like to acknowledge and thank Stavros and the team for the visit to the waste recycling centre yesterday. Interesting for me to see how things have changed. The charges for e-waste, that we've got a lot of feedback about that. But once the recycling happens, I think a lot of people, it will adjust. And also, mihi to the library and the Matariki Star Search and the winners. Everyone was a winner on the night, and in particular the 3 winners and the Rhodesian boys from Rotorua. Yeah, good. My question is, could I get some explanation around the replacement ball at the aquatic centre, please?
Explanation as regards to what? Pastoral.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. The existing bore, or the old bore now, as we've just turned the new one on. The old bore, I think, was around 25 years, and basically there was some concern expressed by GNS around the integrity of it. It may have been linking underground to the adjoining hot pool, and there was quite a big flood down there if people had seen it. So the question was, is that water actually coming out of the hot pool, or is there perhaps a shear in the bore? Because of the age of it, and that the advice we got from GNS was to go ahead and create a new bore. So we've drilled a new bore approximately 50 to 60 metres from the old one into a new area that we actually just cleared its throat, so to speak, yesterday, and the source of new geothermal. So it will replace the other one. So the old one's going to be turned off. The piping's going to be reconnected, and the new one commissioned probably in the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Page 33, the museum. I would just like to compliment Stuart and his team for the record visitor numbers they recorded this last year. To record a 33% increase in numbers and 11% increase in turnover is remarkable, and all compliments to them. And I'd just like to highlight the issue of the cafe. It almost represented a quarter of the museum's turnover, and I think it's making a real worthwhile contribution to growing that facility. So I'd just like to highlight that. Thank you.
Thank you for that on behalf of Stuart and the museum. And I would just emphasise that the cafe is getting a lot of attention in terms of the quality of the offering and the monitoring, because of course it has come up here on more than one occasion. So thank you for that.
It was worthwhile just giving that bit of time under council, staff advice. It was good to give it that time, and obviously you've put some attention there. So it's paid off. Well done. Right, Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question around page 28 and 29. But before my question, I just want to support the words and the accolades that Councillor Sturt said on behalf of the portfolio leads in his role as Sport and Rec area. My question on page 28 is, so pleased to see the Energy Centre and the Sir Howard Morrison Arts Centre 100% usage. Is this percentage, is it the winter one, or is it most of this year are we talking about, please? Thanks, Rob.
Thank you again through the chair. That percentage usage, and there was a comment before about 29 days. It's from the reporting period from the last meeting to this meeting. So it's simply that, and that's why it's sometimes it's 29, sometimes it's 31 or 32, depending on the meeting gap. But that basically means that every day something has been happening in those facilities. Yep.
Finalist, that's for sure. All right, thank you. Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question's around the wastewater discussion on page 32, and I applaud the transparency around the issues that have been highlighted, the breakdowns. The bit about the forest irrigation, I think that highlights the risks around the operation of that system and validates the decision to get out of there. The risks to our environment when there is a breakage. So thank you for that. But in terms of the breakdown in the sludge dewatering on the 20th of June, resulting in elevated nitrogen levels in the final effluent for 3 weeks, Andy, will the upgrade address this as a risk? With flow balancing and all the other proposed elements of the upgrade, will that address this particular issue, which is obviously a concern if we're going to have a pretty tight consent around what we can discharge?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. The upgrade will change the risk levels, and so this was a mechanical breakdown. They do happen, despite the best efforts in trying to keep everything going 24/7. They do happen from time to time, but the upgrade will address some of those risks and change some of those risks. Not to say that mechanical breakdowns won't still give us problems, but we will hope to improve some of these risks that we've got today. I just might add, while I've got the mic, that there's been a third failure in the forest just this weekend. So there was a slip caused by the heavy rainfalls, and there was a third failure, which has all been dealt to and dealt with, but it just shows that there are risks associated with that operation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's actually just in regard to the museum, and yes, the numbers and excellent. But it is in relation to the cafe. I remember, Dave, we were going to look at doing some substantial renovation because it's really rather dated. I mean, the food is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, you want to have something that actually reflects cafe society a wee bit. And that certainly doesn't. And I wondered if something wasn't going to be on the cards to do some renovation in that cafe. Because the crowds are certainly going there.
There is some work going on in terms of the flow through the museum. So the cafe, as you'll all be aware, is a little bit of a pinch point because you've got the theatre there as well and the main entrance going along. And there's some work going on with Thomas's team around the work that also needs to be done on the earthquake strengthening. So it's not worthwhile doing anything on the cafe until we look at that wider issue. And I understand that there's some work going on in terms of scoping that up at the moment.
So I've got three issues, and I'll start with the museum. It's a stunning reflection, really, of performance. But it does raise the question, as Mr. Tuaru's raised, about the next step, which is bigger than just the museum, really. It's about that whole creative precinct. And are we really maximising the use of that? And that's something that I think needs to be looked at next term, because it's becoming a cash cow when 10 years ago it was becoming a sinkhole. So how wonderful for us as a tourism destination and for locals and the high use of locals. So that's one, about its long-term strategic direction. The next is, and it's a little tiddly one about roading, Stavros, and it's some vexatious sort of, they're just going on and on about the Tarawera roundabout. I don't get lots of phone calls actually, but the seal there, and I know we're trying to do, you know, that Sala Street and then the 4-laning extension, but that's getting really, really rutted now and is causing problems that we are being notified of. And the other is Tangaroa, the civil defence exercise on the 31st of August. Are we as councillors to be involved in that? So the museum long-term view, Tarawera and Tangaroa.
Picking up the museum long-term view, it is a thing we're also turning our minds to. You'll be aware that Stuart is playing an increasing role around that sort of creative precinct of the government garden. So in the mix of that, he bought an item here around the children's art house, effectively making sure that could get up and running and facilitating that, and being used by the museum also. He's also got quite an involvement with the wider art centre, Arts Village in there, in terms of a close liaison in with them and sharing certain resources. And certainly the issue strategically for government gardens in that wider sense is actually being researched at the moment as to what we do. We've raised it here for the last wee while in terms of the growth that's going on there, the pressure that's having in terms of the size of the museum and taking people through. So education program in terms of that is getting, it's also been growing. That puts pressure on space, which the Children's Art House is assisted with. And that is an element that is currently being worked on for the next term, as you say.
About this more than any of us, really, because I'm not a user of that road, but it is so rutted now.
Yeah, you're quite right, Your Worship. I think the roundabout is, it's in a poor, state of, of repair. You will notice that recently they've made NZTA made a bit of a feeble attempt to rotomill the approaches, from the city side. We have asked them that we want that, to be shape corrected, the roundabout. So I'm waiting to hear from them, their response. Obviously, they're in the position which is, well, waiting to see the outcome of the corridor study, but, we will not wait for another 6 or 7 months in the current condition. Tangaroa, I would expect at least the hierarchy of our the team leaders, the portfolio leaders, or the councillors should be involved, because our role in the Tangaroa exercise would be mainly to accommodate the adverse effects of a earthquake and a tsunami hitting the bay. So now our role will be probably along the lines of providing welfare and support to the Bay of Plenty. So I would expect us to be at least informed and at least the portfolio leaders should be involved into the process.
One of the issues in regards to Tangaroa is we've kept the council informed that it's on, but one of the dangers in going through an exercise is that you actually don't treat it as an exercise, that you actually get all pre-planned and have all of the work done in advance. So what we are looking for within this is actually for it to be a genuine response as to what we would do, as opposed to sitting back saying there will actually be a tsunami on XYZ date. As we know, those things don't happen according to the best laid plans of central government. So in the mix of that, we're looking to play the game as realistically as we can as an exercise.
Wanted to add to the celebration of the museum, actually, and I think the 60% community participation is driven largely by the portfolios and that creative portfolio. Colour the Night, the Tulip Fest, Children's Day, just to mention a few. The fact that the shows they've put on, the Aiou and the Kuia Mau, Moko, and the Rotorua Trust Collection, these are shows for our community, and they have responded. And each year in the last 3, you can go 28%, then 40%, and now up to 60%. It's reflected in the happiness that the staff have in the museum. They got so squeezed for education, and how wonderful to be squeezed, and that was a win-win for the children's art house. And so I'm really looking forward to the strategic high-level view of that whole precinct, because we know the community are now really getting on board with the fact that we have this fantastic precinct. We have the sculpture trail on that border, which supports that art focus, and of course we've got coming up the second biennial sculpture symposium, and some of those pieces will be changed out, and that also links with the Kura Park. So this whole thing is being driven by an understanding of the importance of our community collaboration, and that has come through the strength of the portfolios, because this has only happened in this triennium, in this last 3 years. So full credit to Stuart and his leadership, and to you, Dave, for that work as well.
I'd like to, on that note, draw everyone's attention to the public art trail brochure that's on your desk. I think that's really good. I've learned that the tulip thingy, I call it, is actually a Stamen sculpture based on Pahurakawa, so that's really good to know, because that's one of my favourite.
May I just add that, and I can't help but boasting, the Tauranga one has 6 pieces of art in it, and ours has 60. So I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
This is your last opportunity.
Madam Chair, we've got a couple of pāduis on our desk, and that. Can I ask, there's one there with an invitation to something here on the 2nd of September. Are we involved in that? Because we are already involved with the Rembrandt one at the museum on the same night, the same date.
Well, we are, but the date is set, you see. The date is set.
It's going to be a clash.
I'll go to one and I'll go.
Yeah, you'll sort it out, Councillor Maxwell. I've full faith in you. All right, there we go. Now, Councillor Sturt has asked for his tiny
Madam
last
Chair,
snippet.
I think it's appropriate that whilst we're looking at reviewing our sewage, that whilst I was in Australia, we lost a bastion of spray irrigation concept of the Waka Forest and Mr. Gordon Roberts, who was our civil engineer for many, many years. And I just think it would be appropriate on behalf of this committee to pass on our condolences to Leslie and their family, who have been a long-standing family within this community, and Gordon's. I can remember going to a meeting in the Nongata Hall and talking about staff getting shouted down. Thomas, this guy, he just got skinned alive to think that we would spray sewage into our Waka forest, and of course the engineering expertise that Gordon Roberts gathered together to make this a reality has served us for nearly 40 years. And it's time to move on to another concept, and technology changes, but I just felt it appropriate that it be noted in the minutes that we pass on our condolences for the passing of Mr. Gordon Roberts, our chief engineer in the 80s.
Councillor Sturt, for bringing that to our attention, and I'm sure we'll make sure that's noted in the minutes. Thank you very much for that. All right, well, I think that's the end of our part of this report, so thank you, Dave. Oh, Councillor Srank, you had the last question.
The improvement to the Otonga Road, Springfield Road intersection, what is it?
Mm-hmm. Srank? 30.
Councillor, as you know, the cycleway program anticipates a sideway improvement on Springfield Road, goes to Otonga, intersection. That intersection will be served now with signals, traffic signals, because a small roundabout in that area is just inadequate to serve, the demand on that area. And the schools in the location have been raising safety concerns, for kids crossing the road, on that unprotected roundabout. And therefore, in conjunction with our cycleway that goes up Springfield, we will do the safety improvement of the Otonga intersection, to complement that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Foster, to you and your team. It's excellent to know all the good work done in this last few months. So now we have a resolution to go into public excluded. Moved to Councillor Rokawate, seconded Councillor Maxwell. And now I need to read out the reason. So the reason for going into public excluded session is to enable any local authority holding the information to carry on without prejudice or disadvantage negotiations, including commercial and industrial negotiations. So I'll put that motion to the vote. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. So thank you for that. And are there any public left to leave? I don't think there are. No? I think they've all gone. Okay. Beg your pardon? Oh, yeah, the camera. Is that off, Ingrid? The camera? It will be. They turn it off when they're here, apparently. So that's good to know. So I would like to move that the confirmation of the confidential minutes of Operations and Monitoring Committee held